about akin to being invited to appear before the Grand Inquisition. The less they knew, the more suspicious they grew. It stoked the fire of their great fear, falling property prices. All of this Miff had experienced. All of it had finally become unbearable. That was when Miff decided to walk away. So far, he hadn't regretted it. Although, to be honest, last winter had been tough. This coming winter, he'd make better plans. If Miff felt kinship with any kind of living creature, it was with the foxes that came out under cover of darkness to scavenge. Or with cats. Miff liked cats, and felt he had a lot in common with them. At night, cats stopped pretending to be domesticated mockeys, part of an ordered world, and turned feral. They popped out through flaps kindly owners had installed in their back doors, leaving the home as well-groomed, well-fed, affectionate family members. They were transformed, before they reached the nearest flower bed, into predatory hunters. Small but quick and ruthless. They were alert to every tiny sound or movement, catching the most elusive of scents, and endowed with that other, nameless sense that warned of danger. Then they were off, consummate athletes, scrambling easily up a wall, fence, or tree, and slithering through narrow apertures that a human male could just slip a hand through. When any cat and Miff passed in the gloom, they ignored one another, each going about his own business. But once their wild instincts were satisfied, most cats turned back into domestic mockeys and trotted off to comfortable homes to snooze the day away, unlike Miff. Yet he didn't envy them. He sometimes thought that, by accepting even a part-time domesticity, the cats had sold out. By day, he was always cheerful and chatty with passers-by, who stopped to commiserate with him on his misfortune at being homeless, occasionally to offer a little money or a sandwich, or sometimes to berate him for being work-shy. "You try it, mate," he would always advise these last. "You try and survive on the streets." Mostly they would mumble and walk off when he told them this. The only time he'd tucked in his head and pretended to be asleep was the day he'd spotted a guy he'd been at school with, marching towards him with all the confidence of the successful. The old schoolfellow had marched on by, oblivious, and Miff had breathed a sigh of relief. After that, he'd left London and found himself a refuge in this Cotswold town of Bamford, where surely he'd avoid meeting anyone he knew. If word got back to his former work colleagues that he was living rough, that would be bad enough. But if it made news at the next school reunion, the governors would probably erase his name from the list of alumni. His parents would be mortified because they'd told everyone he was volunteering in a refugee camp in some unvisitable spot on the globe. They'd also taken the precaution of moving to Portugal. In truth, he was really happiest at night. At night, there was no need for pretense. You could be yourself. He avoided drunks, always unpredictable. You never knew with them. Sometimes they were lurching homeward, reliving the evening, and more concerned with fellow revellers than with rough sleepers. Sometimes they fell out of the pub or club in a tangled mass and immediately set about those nearest to them, for reasons they wouldn't remember in the morning. Sometimes the drink released a cruel humour, and a sleeping body became a target. Miff hated the drunks the most. You saw all sorts of things at night, of course, but you kept your mouth shut. That was understood. He was on nodding terms with quite a few professional burglars. He didn't bother them, and they didn't worry about him. He had reached a neglected area of the town. Once there had been a busy estate of small manufacturing businesses here. They had long ceased to operate. While the planners argued over what to do with the site and its deteriorating buildings, it sank slowly into dereliction. Rain entered through damaged roofs. The windows were broken and patchily boarded up. At ground level, the weeds crept in, together with wild...